Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm your host, Carly Pinchon. This week, we have a guest joining us, Grace Emmons. I'm so excited for you to just share all about what you do and who you are with the audience. And so for those of you who are joining and don't know who she is, this is actually our first time meeting too. So I'm going to get to know everything about you and what you do during this conversation, which honestly, sometimes I love because we just get to flow with it and see wherever it's meant to go. But for those of you joining, she's an energy healer. She's a transformation coach. I know I saw a little bit about the fact that you used to be in like bioengineering and like the very sciencey side. And so I know that you like to take that approach too, where you bring science into spirituality and how that matters in our mental health and our well-being and our mindset and all the things. And so I'm just really excited for this conversation. But if you just want to share maybe a teeny bit, like anything you feel, yeah, like whether you want to say what you do or even just to start on what brought you here, because I feel like there's always a journey that leads you into this work. And so I'm assuming you probably went the sciencey route and then something woke you up and then you're like, wait, there's got to be more. And then you got pulled to transformation, energy healing and Reiki and all the things. So if you just want to give like a little bit about your journey, I feel like that's always so nice for people to know like how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I will. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So yes, I started off, I have my undergrad degree in biomedical engineering from USC. I was always really fascinated by our health and well-being and like this concept of natural life just creates itself. Like you can grow a baby in a woman's belly and it knows exactly how to turn into a human, and we know how to heal ourselves. Like our immune system is so powerful. And I was fascinated by all of this life intelligence. But being a high achiever and susceptible to being molded by our society, I was kind of pushed down this route of, okay, well, then you should be pre-med and you should do a bioengineering degree, and like kind of just allowed outside pressures to dictate where I took that. And it was cool for a while. I mean, I'm an absolute nerd, so I loved all of that. I ended up in a really high-powered consulting gig, consulting for top pharma companies flying back and forth across the country. And, it was high paying and kind of high clout. But ultimately, I ended up feeling super burnt out and disconnected from myself. I was, trying to work in this like man's world on the masculine schedule. And I didn't realize how out of tune that was with my own design, my own natural way of being and working. And so that was very much what did ultimately lead to this really rock bottom point that I came to. I ended up addicted to adderall. I started suffering from anxiety and depression, and I just felt so like stuck in my life and just uninspired. And I found energy healing. Actually, I was looking for somebody to help with a chronic shoulder pain that had also manifested. That, of course, I thought had nothing to do with any of this, right? And in that Reiki session, I had a deep and profound awakening, spiritual awakening. I had an experience of like, it was like my whole body melted away. And I was just in this state of oneness with the universe and being held and like just washed over with so much love. And like, it was just this profound experience. I remember opening my eyes and feeling like I was looking at the world for the first time. So this is where we get this term awakening. Like it was like I had just literally woken up from a dream and suddenly everything looked so clear. And I was able to just suddenly see all of these things that were out of balance in my life. My work was just like, this is not aligned. What the F am I doing? And like, I was in a bad relationship at the time. And it was so clear suddenly, like, wait, this is what it feels like to be in a state of love. Like I felt it within. And then it was so clear how out of tune what was happening in the relationship was with that vibration, right? So Reiki and energy healing healed me and transformed me from the inside out. That set me off a path that was at the beginning like, let me just explore this, let me learn more about it. which I thought was going to be just on the side for fun. I never thought in a million years I would make the jump that I ultimately made. I said, in another life, I'll just be a Reiki master and work with people in my studio, home studio. And then lo and behold, fast forward 5 years, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I followed the pings and the callings to train in Reiki, but also began to explore a lot of different spiritual and esoteric modalities. And it ultimately, being the science nerd I am, led me to obtain my master's in psychology. I had the total pleasure of being part of the only Ivy League master's program that is looking at the overlap of spirituality, mind, and body. So I was able to begin to put into like the scientific framework and the Western context what had happened to me, which I saw as an opportunity for me to really bring it to the rest of the world. And so now today I am, as you said, a transformational coach, an energy healer. I'm the CEO of Forward with Grace, my spiritual consultancy. And I'm also the creator of the Topanga Canyon Oasis, which is an intentional retreat and gathering space here in Topanga Canyon. Oh, wait, I think you're
No, it's
muted.
me. I was muted. Just to keep it really clear on the background. But okay, first of all, where is Topanga Canyon?
LA area.
Okay. I was gonna say, I'm
just
like,
next to Malibu.
I was like, I think this is California, but I wasn't sure. Okay, this is so, whoa, there's a massive bug right on my window. Trip me out for a second. But it's crazy how similar I feel my journey was. And I feel like you probably see this all the time, where someone has, like you said, that awakening. I feel like it's becoming such a common word people are hearing now of, oh, awaken or wake up or whatever. I almost feel like it's being overused to the point that the importance of what it feels like in your body when that starts to happen is so massive on a transformational, just like of your whole life, because it was the same thing for me. I started having my first introduction to any level of spirituality actually was Reiki. And I went to a Reiki healer. I was had kind of dabbled in like Gabby Bernstein's books, right? And so I was kind of learning a little bit about fear and love and like manifesting and all of these types of things. And then I had a friend who recommended I go to a Reiki healer. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, what's she going to do? Or use her hands? Like, how's that supposed to help me? Because back then it was, you have to like dig your elbows in and like, you have to feel it. You have to grind, you have to work hard. And I was the same thing, like an academic, went to school, thought there was no way I could make a living, teaching people nutrition, even though that was my natural passion. So I went and got the degrees to be in the bachelor's of science and like the nerd out of computer science and being the middleman between doctors. And like I went and did all that because I thought, oh, that's what will make me, because I'm smart, it will give me a good job and then I'll make good money. And it's funny how you went into the medical space too. And I just, same thing. I was like, this is so not for me. But before I even had my big spiritual awakening, you could say, I had my career one. And it totally led me down that same path where like I started pursuing things outside of it. I realized I wasn't happy. And then I started to kind of be introduced to all of this. But back when I was introduced to that Reiki healer, my first experience, and this is why I have such a like special spot for the work that Reiki healers do, because I think so often it can be so overlooked as not being a big deal, because it's like, sorry, I just hit my mic. What work are you doing? Like if you don't understand it, you're like, oh, wow, you move your hands. Like I didn't feel anything. But in that session, I knocked out for probably 2.5 hours. Like, I don't know where I went. And she was like, whoa, I don't know what happened, but like your heart needed so much clearing. And back then I used to think, well, I love people, so my heart's fine. Like I didn't understand that you could feel love for others, but also be blocked and also be guarded and also be not in the state of love, like you said, where you feel it within you. So I was able to like give all love and feel love for other people, but I was so disconnected from myself. I didn't feel any love for myself. I had no self-worth, all these things. And she's the person who pointed that out to me and kind of started me on that trajectory. And then 6 months later, I went back and I was pregnant and she fell to her knees crying because she was like, oh my God, this is exactly what you needed to start your healing journey of your heart. And I got pregnant unexpectedly. It wasn't planned. It was completely out of nowhere. And so it's like, I now obviously through my journey understand how perfectly that all was designed. because becoming a mom was the best thing that could have happened for me to send me even deeper into this journey. So I just love
Wow.
the work of what Reiki is and how I feel like it can reach people who are even not super far into their spirituality, like it can meet you where you are. And I think that that's really beautiful. So
I love that. I
I just,
love that. Thank
yeah,
you for telling me that whole
yeah,
story. I connect with it so much.
yeah.
And you're exactly right. I mean, Reiki, it's such a great little gateway into this whole world because I want to go back to something you said that the
Mhm,
felt sensation is so
mhm,
important. This is actually what they're showing. They did a large study of asking all sorts of different people from all sorts of different walks of life. They had them describe a spiritual experience. They had them describe a stressful experience and a relaxing experience. And they imaged their brains during each of those
mhm,
descriptions. And it was very illuminating because not only did we see different kind of like footprints in the brain of what the brain looked like in those different situations, but it actually also gave the researchers a view into what people describe as spiritual because it was very different for everybody.
mhm,
And the commonalities actually was not about religion or not about anything woo woo or like these things that I think people put their own connotations on. The commonality was a felt sense, a felt experience, like a very visceral, real something happening within your body, and that it felt meaningful, that they
mhm,
assigned meaning to it. And so spirituality is so personal to each and every one of us. And there's so many different places to get it. For some people, it's through religion. And for some people, it's through, nature. And for some people, it's through like energy healing and things like that. And no one is right or wrong. It's just how we can access that truth of who we are and our connection to something greater than ourselves.
mhm. I also think it's so cool that you got to take your academic nerdy self and go do that in school and like be part of something because that's not super common where you'd be able to do that and like tie in spirituality. So that's so amazing.
Thank
Is there anything you want to jump into? And this bug is like the most massive. I don't know what it is. Almost looks like a stink bug or a grasshopper. I have no idea, but he's just crawling
Oh,
around.
we should look up the meaning.
I
I'm
know,
wondering if I have
right? My spirit guide book. We
I
do that with
have
it.
I have a book of symbols I always use, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's down here right now.
I have
Otherwise,
it, and every time we see something that's really makes itself known to us, my kids are always like, "Let's look it up in the book. What does it
yeah.
mean?" Um, anyways, he's just like really making himself known. I think it must be a stink bug. He's just thin. Anyway, um, in regards to just, I don't know if you want to jump in further into even that experience of like feeling what you felt and how that started to shift your life, because I know once I started to feel that within me, you the awakening part is like you can't be blind now to what else is happening in your life. And so of course, once I started going on this path even deeper, it's like, oh, you have to look at your relationships. Oh, you have to look at where you live. Oh, you have to look at how you do this and how you do that. And like these things that used to be my normal patterns, how much they started to shift. And it can feel scary because your whole life can start to need changing, but it's all for the greater good in the alignment. And even when you said it was like all of a sudden you could see clearly, I'm experiencing this so much with nature. Like I don't know if you started finding this. I've done, psilocybin, so I've worked a little bit with plant medicine, and I feel like that was what really activated me to the insects, which might sound really weird to
Mm,
people. But like I remember laying there the first time on the mat and I was just not covered in them in a creepy way, but like from how the earth functions, from the deepest layer at the bottom all the way up. And it showed me the value of insects. And like
mm.
now I have just this newfound respect for insects, like all the time. And it's so funny that Bug was even here. That wasn't even planned. Now he's gone. He obviously wanted us to talk about insects. But like
Yeah.
how I feel, I don't know if you felt this way, but I'm like, even for a leaf and how it works and like the worms in the ground, you end up having this just deep appreciation for earth and life and all
Yes.
forms, not just human to human. So when you feel that love, I don't know if you started experiencing that too, where you feel it to people. You finally feel unconditional love for other humans, like without them having to meet your needs. Um,
Yes.
and if you just want to go into like what that felt like and how your life started to shift once you found that feeling of love, like real love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
real love because it's just our state of being.
Yes.
Like we just are made of love. We are love. We can be in love, just walking around
Love.
in our own like love bubble within, and then of course giving it to those we see. And of course when we talk about, like the energetics and the kind of mystical of you attract you attract your own vibration. So when you're vibrating in your own state of love, like then you attract the soulmate and the loving partnerships and things.
Mhm.
But what you said was very interesting to me, because I want to nerd out again for a moment and mention that there's something really cool that also is shown in the research, that our brains, like we as humans, we evolved on this planet. We evolved as really like a part of the ecosystem of nature, right? We were barefoot walking on the earth. We were sleeping on the ground. We were eating plants like directly from the earth and eating insects. And, like we were so connected and in tune with the natural life force that's living through nature. And we are part of that. We still are. But we have forgotten that in a lot of ways. We've been so disconnected, right? And there's something that it's very interesting about our brains. We have this very developed prefrontal cortex, and this is where our thinking is differentiated from animals. Actually, when we end up thinking too much and using the prefrontal cortex too much, this is the real meaning of overthinking. And it shifts our brainwaves into this state of dysregulation if we're stuck there too long. And when we sit back and we stop thinking and we reconnect to the natural rhythms of life, that's actually our natural state of well-being.
Mm.
And our brainwaves shift into this alpha state where we feel connected to the whole natural world. We feel connected to the universe, the cosmos. We feel like part of something greater. And that's being connected to all of life, the animals, the insects, the other people. And that's how we're meant to be. Like that's our natural frequency. But we sort of trick ourselves. It's like our greatest strength became our greatest, drawback in a way, with that overthinking. And we end up like disconnecting ourselves. It's literally like we create this imaginary shell around ourselves that's blocking out our ability to be in flow with the natural rhythms. So
We can dive deeper into that if you want to, just because I think for people who don't, because I remember being this way. Like I had to think my way into all the answers. It was like, okay, but if I gather the data and the information, I have to make sure that it's the best choice and it's the right thing. And it's like, it was so like so over functioning that you almost put yourself in a state of, at least for me, I would end up feeling almost paralyzed and overwhelmed most of the time, because you're never going to think your way into the best decision. Like, yes, you can make great decisions that way. But what I found, and I've been practicing lately, is letting my intuition kind of guide me on when it feels right, it is. I don't need all the backup data. I don't need all the information. I don't need to look at all my options and make sure. It's like, no, when it feels like a yes, and this is the value of learning what feeling in your body feels like, because when you reconnect to you, you can just feel what a yes is and what a no is. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, because I feel like you do work with people on this all the time also, but that feeling of understanding the difference, and when you kind of can get yourself out of all that like overthinking at the, what'd you call it, prefrontal cortex?
Yeah.
Wow, look at those old skills of the right names. But yeah, like when you can pull yourself out of that and get in your body, how just like that trust of yourself that you have all that you need within you, even if you don't have all of the analytical right information and data,
Yes,
So if you want to speak
absolutely.
on that a little, because I feel like I've finally learned what that feels like.
Yes.
And I also just want to say it can feel scary when you make your first big decisions with feeling.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so much of us, like even in religion, it tells you don't trust your heart, don't trust your feelings, like those will misguide you. And so I feel like for a lot of us, we grow up believing that our feelings are a lie, and what we believe and what we feel isn't good enough. We need to take it from somebody else who can tell us what to do and give us rules to follow. And
Yeah.
then we give up our power in the process. So anything you want to say on that?
Oh, so much to say
Yeah.
on that. Where do we
Yeah.
begin?
Yeah.
So something that is really core to what I do with every person I work with, every client, is really awakening their own inner guidance system, their own intuitive knowing. And that looks and feels different for different people. Intuition is something we all have the capacity for. It's one of 4 ways of knowing. It's
Mhm.
legitimate. There's 4 legitimate ways that we describe in, like, psychology. There's logical reasoning, there's empirical, knowing through data and evidence. There's authoritative knowing. So like you mentioned, oh, well, the church leader needs to tell me what's right. And then we have intuitive knowing. It's just the fourth one. It's
It's the fourth one. Mhm.
equally as important as any of the others. They all have their place, right? And we all have our natural gifts. Like some of us, I am highly intuitive. It is one of my superpowers. The more that I leaned into that, it got, honestly, my intuition was reawoken through energy healing, which is one of the things that it does for many of us. It tunes us back in, like, oh, wait. You have your own inner voice, your own inner guidance, and it wakes that back up. So it's something, not only do I use it and is it part of how I steer and guide my clients, but I also am obviously very passionate about awakening it within them and teaching them how to follow their own intuition. I don't want them to follow what I tell them to do, right? That would be the authoritative. I
Yep.
want to teach them how to turn up the volume on that inner guidance system that they have. So, I mean, it's really cool. I have like executives at top companies practicing intuitive decision making. It's very compelling to them. I like to share the data point that 80% of Fortune 500 CEOs say that they use intuitive decision making for their biggest decisions. One way we can actually understand what intuitive decision making is, our subconscious mind is taking in 28.5 thousand times the amount of information as what our conscious mind is aware of in any given moment. So we can think of it as your conscious mind is the one that's trying to find the reason, find the logic and understand the reason why, to make the decision. But your subconscious has so much more information available that when we're getting those intuitive hits, those intuitive feelings of it's a yes, it's a no, like it could actually just be our ability to access that wealth of information. Like we don't have the processing power to process it
Mhm.
all to get the why, but it's spitting out the answer for us. So we have to be willing to, take a step, make a move, trust it. That's the only way to kind of build that muscle is to um, receive the answer, or receive the direction,
Mhm.
take the step, and then you get affirmed. Because only by trusting and taking the step do you ultimately down the road see, oh my gosh, yes, and that's why. Like, and then you get the data, then you get the evidence. If we wait for the data
Mhm.
and the evidence, we miss the chance to capitalize on that power
Mm.
that we were given. So I always like to teach clients, we practice it together in different ways. But like one thing that I love to tell people is you can just play with your intuition. You can just make it fun. You can ask your intuition questions when it's low stakes. And then you begin to realize that you can trust it and you trust it a little bit more. Just like any relationship, you build trust over time. And then eventually you're able to trust it in those big changes, like I'm going to quit my corporate job and start my own business in this area that other people would think was crazy. Like transformational coaching and energy healing for
Right.
top leaders. Like, who's going to buy that? And I'm like, I
Right.
just feel like that's what I'm meant to do, and I
Yeah.
know my intuition doesn't guide me wrong.
Right. And it's getting to that place where I'm sure you had little moments where you need to learn, okay, wait, that was good. That worked out well for me. I followed my intuition, it worked out well for me. And so you can practice small scale, of course. And then when it comes to the bigger decisions, I love that you shared that about the Fortune 500 companies,
Mhm.
whatever, these big CEOs,
Yeah.
because there is a power when you say like, oh, like it feels off in my gut, or you feel sick about something or off about something. That's your body communicating with you and starting to really trust that those feelings are valid, and that, like you just said, your body's processing information all the time, and same with your subconscious mind, that you don't like consciously know is happening. Same way that our bodies are animals, like we're an animal species, and they're picking up everything around us from other human beings, other people's energies, other surroundings that we don't have to be thinking about. Our bodies know. And then we'll be like, oop, something feels off. You got to move here. You got to go this way. You got to run. You got to make this choice, whatever it is. And understanding that they're so intelligent. And all of us have those internal navigating systems. It's just relearning how to listen to yours. Because I
Yep.
think for a lot of us, if we went to normal schools or normal upbringings with a lot of our teachings were authoritarian, whether it was our
Yep.
teachers or college or like religious teachers, you go to class there, like all these things where for so much of our information, it was given to us. And then we go,
Yep.
okay, those are the answers. Those are the answers rather than the self-discovery of understanding and finding our own answers. And so it's relearning and trusting that within you. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah,
which,
there's nothing in our society that's cultivating that within us. And this is part of that, you know, larger issue of us
Mhm.
being tipped a little bit too far into the masculine. It's beginning to shift, on the
Yeah.
grand scale, like the big capital masculine energy that has ruled the patriarchy and corporate
Mhm.
America was all kind of part of this masculine machine. And we're now beginning to see a bit of a shift back
Mhm.
into the feminine, and it's really needed. We really need a balance of both.
Yeah.
But as the feminine has been suppressed over the past couple hundred years, thousands of years,
Yeah.
really,
Thousands.
um that like intuition is part of the capital F feminine. It doesn't mean that men don't have
Yeah.
intuition. They do. We all of us have the masculine and feminine within us, but we've been told that those on the under the feminine column, right,
Yeah.
were not good, not right. So
Whatever.
we've been
All of
suppressed. Yeah.
it. Mhm. And the feeling and just not trusting where it's super valid to incorporate all of it. And you, I'm sure if you do this and you work with people in their cycle, I'm a big fan of that too, and understanding our whole way that things are set up right now was on the 24-hour hormone cycle. And so
Mhm.
with the 24-hour hormone cycle, that's a man. We work on like a 28 day cycle. So
Exactly.
like we really, when we start to tune into that and you understand it for yourself, then every month when you're starting to feel low inspo and like you're just this lazy slob that never wants to do anything, understanding like, yeah, that comes up for like 3 days right before your period or during, and then it goes away and you're right back to being your like highly motivated self. And so trusting that that's the natural rhythm of it. And then when you start to just surrender to it and flow to it, life gets a lot easier and you don't have to beat yourself up so much because you get to lean into what your strengths are in the different seasons of your cycle. Um,
Yes, exactly.
in terms of what was I just going to ask you about the not the masculine feminine thing. Anyways, I don't know, but I would love to know a little bit more about when you started having this journey.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I'm noticing a lot of people messaging me or going through personal life struggles. And I know for me, I kept it pretty close to myself until I had it figured out per se. But I was married. I started noticing, okay, I just knew it was an intuitive hit. How we were just talking, it was like, it was oh shit, our relationship's done out of nowhere. Like
Wow.
listening to a podcast about um what are they called? Soul contracts. And I
Mhm.
went, "Oh, like it's done." I didn't want it to be done. I was like, "Oh, that's a weird thought. Like why would that just come in?" And then I tried to run away from it and push it away and not deal with it for almost 2 years. And I feel like as I was on this journey, it just became louder and louder and so uncomfortable that I had no choice but to end that relationship because everything in my body was telling me you have to, even though logically, again,
Yeah.
everything was great. Like good person, good everything, but everything in my body was telling me no. And so that was one of my big first decisions of having to be like, okay, I just need to actually listen to this and trust this. But I think this can happen in certain relationships if they're not aligned. Sometimes as you go on this journey, things fall away for other things to kind of fall into place. But I know we do talk a lot about relationships on here, and I know a lot of people are going through those dynamics. But if there's anything you want to share in regards to either your journey of navigating that kind of awakening and then having to navigate the job that wasn't right for you, the relationship that wasn't right for you, and just how you leaned into that and like what kind of transpired afterward. Because I know it can feel so challenging in the before phase when you're trying to figure it out and hope that you don't have to change anything in your life because it feels really uncomfortable to have to go into any change. But anything you'd want to share on that, and if you want to bring anything in regards to your clients or the science or the anything you want to share on that side.
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, I want to applaud you for trusting yourself in spite of like what a hard decision Oh my
it's not easy.
gosh. Yeah.
Mhm.
But then after the fact, it was affirming that you
Yeah.
were like, absolutely
Well, even
had to
still,
do
I
it.
sometimes have days where I'm like, "Ugh, can we really not just like make this work? Like this would feel so much easier, right? It would feel
Hmm.
easier to be able to do that." But I'm like, everything in my body would be telling me that's what I meant to do if that's what I meant to do. And it isn't. So I just have to
Yep.
sit in it until I just trust. Like I'm just in
Yep.
this season of just trusting that when I lean into whatever I'm being pulled to, it'll all work out. So I don't need to have it figured out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think, like you mentioned, soul contracts, but it's also important for us to acknowledge that different people are meant to be parts, like they're pulled in for different parts of our life and part of our journey. And it doesn't even mean that somebody was wrong or the relationship was wrong or you weren't meant to be in it to begin with,
Mhm.
or like, you know, you made the wrong decision or you were anything like that. It can be right and right and right until it's just not right anymore, right? That's just everything in our lives is constantly changing and evolving and growing. And sometimes we grow together with people and sometimes we end up growing apart, and that is truly, um, again, it doesn't say anything bad about you or that person.
Mhm.
And I think that's a level of, it requires a level of authenticity, um, of like empowerment within yourself and trust in yourself, um, and radical honesty to be able
Mhm.
to speak to. Um, so many people just want to stay where it's comfortable, where they know, but guess what? Growth happens in the discomfort. It happens on those edges of us moving out of the comfort zone. Um, so yeah, I think for me, I mean, I was stuck in this relationship that just was not healthy. And we had like already broken up, gotten back together, broken up again. Like it was just dysfunctional. So it should have been so obvious that it wasn't right. But, I was in my low 20s and I just was so infatuated by him. And he was this hot shot in the social circles I was in. And I just like had it in my head that, I should be his girlfriend and that he should want me so much and he should want me more than these other girls. And like, even after there was infidelity, he cheated on me and I still like felt like I had to prove something. Like I
Yep.
wanted to be in control. So I was, okay, well now I need to make him want me back. And I was like still involved trying to like win
Yeah.
over these other girls and trying to prove something that if he ultimately, would of course come back wanting me, that made me better.
Yeah.
And what all of this has to do with is really just, um, giving our power away outside of ourselves. That's me subscribing to external validation instead of internal validation, right?
Mhm.
And when I had my awakening, when energy healing helped to heal my heart, and I mean, honestly, like I see so many different places that this ties into the chakra system and the energy system,
Mhm.
knowing about it now. Like it's our solar plexus is in charge of our, empowerment and power. It's our heart that's obviously in charge of our self-love as well as love for others. It's our sacral that's in charge of like our intuitive knowing and connection to our needs, right? So many places, honestly, that needed to be healed. And once that happened, luckily for me, it was easy for me to look at the relationship and say like, oh, wow, I'm finally ready to walk away from this. Like, what the fuck have I been doing? How
No,
have I been
literally.
like messing around with this? Like, I finally just realized, like, remembered who the fuck I was and what I deserved and what true love felt like. And that was not it. And I finally felt whole in myself,
Mhm.
that I knew, oh, I don't need a partner just to like prove something. Like I am whole and
Mhm.
I'm excited for when I meet the right partner who is also whole in themselves, and that'll be great.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, of course, met my husband, soulmate, like months after this. I was not even ready. Like when I met him, I was like, oh no, I just got out of this crazy relationship. I don't even like, because I wasn't even looking, right? I was so happy and thriving and just like in my best self energy, that of course that's when you attract the right person.
Right. Which is so true because I think even for me coming out of that relationship, I had been learning so much about relationships that I'm like, oh my gosh, like who's the person going to be? I was so excited for like, who's this person? And through my journey, it kept reminding me, I was like, oh, there's gonna be like this masculine man and he's gonna come. And then I had the tarot card reading that said this masculine man was coming. And in that season, I realized the masculine was me. It was me healing
Mm.
my wounded masculine to be whole and understanding that I get to provide safety, security. I get to choose me. I get to do all these things that I was looking for a man to do to myself. And then I was like,
Yes.
oh, I get it now. So it was like, it's just like you, it was never outside of you. And that chasing and that competition, that's some things that I love talking about masculine and feminine energies for, because that is kind of the wounded masculine of like, but I'm going to get chosen. I'm going to show that I'm the best and I'm going to win. And it's like, no, you just exist as you are, like you were, and
Mm-hmm.
they will always come find you when it's meant to be. That dynamic is meant to be. And so as a woman, especially, it's like that's part of your superpower is being magnetic, in the sense that
Mm-hmm.
when you're doing what is aligned for you and you're in your power, the right person, you'll just magnetize them in. So it's like you don't
Yeah.
need to be so concerned or worried about it. And
Yeah.
I've actually been thinking that lately, where I'm like, oh shit, I'm so content now that I'm almost like, this is going to be the season when it comes in, because I'm finally like, I'm not looking, I'm not wandering or like going into a room and looking anymore, or wondering or trying to figure out who. It's like, no, I'm so good finally, just without worrying about another person, that as you were just speaking, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like that's the type of season when the person comes in, because you're not looking anymore
Yeah.
and you're not seeking it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and not from a place of, like, playing games, like, I feel like
Yes.
sometimes women then try to trick themselves, like, they're, like, pretending like they're not looking, but they really are. It's like, "No,
Yes.
dude, the
That was
universe,
me.
like, it can
I was doing
feel
that.
it knows, it can read through your
It's like, I'm
bullshit."
totally good, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I was good, but my eyes were so like, "Is he here?"
Yeah, and
Like,
that's normal, right? Like, a little bit, we have to kind of fake it till we make it and, like, get
yeah.
into that and get used to being on our own. It's a lot to be, I remember that season, however short, of, like,
Mhm.
finally feeling so whole by myself, and I was living by myself for the first time, and, like, it is crazy to just be with yourself, and it's
Yeah.
so different, especially if you've always been in relationships, but it's also one of the most, like, exciting and fun and
Yes.
amazing times in your life, because if you also realize, like, and you have, a son and maybe
Yeah.
other children and
2
like,
boys, yeah.
yeah, so when you realize, okay, and then you're going to have a family and then you're going to like eventually have a partner, you're going to be with other people for a
Forever.
lot of your life,
Yeah.
for most of your life. So it's like, actually, can you just enjoy that
Yeah.
moment that you have and just be thriving and doing whatever it is you want and just filling your cup and taking care of yourself? It's such a beautiful time. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I am excited for you and all listeners who are
Yeah.
there.
But, okay, so your relationship, I don't know if you wanna jump into that at all, or anything else you kind of want to really go into that you're feeling would be valuable, um, just based on anything we've said.
Let's see. Let's see. Um, I guess one thing that I noted down when you were talking before
Mhm.
was to share about my journey, which was that when I first went and saw a Reiki healer, and then I ended
Mhm.
up having a lot of changes happening around my life. And then really it took me like years of um, making shifts and adjustments. It's kind of like calibrating slowly closer and closer
Mhm.
to
It's like
that path of
micro shift.
alignment. Yeah, yes, exactly. So I
It
was in
doesn't
like
just.
this
Yes.
micro shift
Yeah.
path. Um, and that's beautiful. And I'm happy for anybody, wherever they are in their journey, if you are committed to just being more open to hearing from your own soul, your own intuition, following your own highest path, whatever pace is right for you. One thing that I'm super excited about that I do with my clients now is I honestly thought back to what support would I have wanted when I was going through these like
Yeah.
fallouts of my career, my relationship, like these big, big changes. And I could like envision and like feel this type of support where it was like you're getting the Reiki, but somebody's holding you through this
Mhm.
experience and through this transformation. And I honestly didn't, I looked for this myself. Like I was like,
Mhm.
what's a Reiki master that can like lead me through this and who's
Yep.
somebody that I look up to and that I like, I respect their energy and what they've made of their lives and that I can resonate with, but they're further along than me. Like I was craving that so much. And never was able to find it. Actually, I did eventually manifest it from one of my mentors. She even
Ooh.
told me that I manifested it, but it was a little bit short-lived because it wasn't really in alignment with what she was ready to offer. So this is now what I offer people, and it's truly, I think, the most transformative experience you can have, but it's
Mhm.
a coaching container infused with energy healing. So it's guiding you through, holding your
Mhm.
hand through some of these really big changes, seismic shifts, so that you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to have this like this intense awakening and then be like, what the fuck do I do next? Like, how do
Yeah.
I navigate this? So anyway, I wrote a note down when you were talking about your experience in mine,
Mhm.
that like truly this felt like my life's work to fill a gap that
Yes,
I felt was there.
totally. Because that's for me too. That's when I started searching for the first time, really. Like I was like, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. I don't need help. And then in those changes, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming having to think about making these choices. Like I want somebody to be by my side. And that's when I started seeking out whether it was Reiki healers or therapists or body workers or just different people in the spiritual space. And I started diving into so many different avenues until I started to feel like I think I'm good. Like I think I trust myself so much right now that I don't feel this need to be seeking out all of these other resources. But in those seasons, I dove in hard. Like sessions multiple times a week. I was working with a bunch of different people and understanding that I didn't need to have all the answers. Eventually they would come. And no one necessarily gave me an answer, but
Oh
they
yeah.
were there to support me and guide me to it. Um, and those little things were so helpful. So the work you're doing when people are in those transition series are, yeah, just phases of their life
Yeah.
is so, so valuable. Is there anything you want to say in regards to, because I know you have the science brain, but what you found for people who may be feeling like, oh yeah, Reiki, whatever, I don't really understand or feel the benefits, how you would describe it for them to understand why it's so massive and amazing and can be transformational to people's lives.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. I mean, there's studies that show the impacts of Reiki, that are, there's few, there should be more, but um, good research takes a lot of money, and there's
Mhm.
not a lot of money in funding Reiki research. That's honestly the only reason why there's not more data out
Right.
there. But we know that it has very real effects on our body, our mind. We don't have great endpoints in academic research to study the impact to the spiritual. They use this like this endpoint. Your rating of your overall well-being, and
Mhm.
Reiki's really good at improving that, but it sounds kind of fluffy and it doesn't sound all
Yes.
that amazing. What I've come to understand it as, and I did a lot of my research in my master's at Columbia on the evidence for Reiki, is this is a non-local form of healing. So there's a lot of new information out there. If you read things by Larry Dossey, One Mind. Like there is this basically field of consciousness that we are all connected to, right? And that's the fabric through which Reiki energy transfer is happening. So it's not actually like from my hands to your body. That's why you can do it remotely. That's why, I infuse Reiki into the coaching sessions I do over Zoom, because it's actually a non-local type of healing.
Mm.
But I think that what I wanted to share with people is maybe the easiest framework that I learned to understand the experience that I had was, it was truly altered state of consciousness that this energy healing elicited. So, many people are into plant medicine these days. I am too, totally, love it. Very healing. That brings us to these altered states of
Mhm.
consciousness where we are jumping up in terms of how we operate our day to day. We're suddenly
Mhm.
getting a glimpse of this higher tier where we actually can understand how connected everything is. We're
Mhm.
actually elevating. I mean, this isn't very scientific, but when you talk about the concepts of Christ consciousness or Buddha
Mhm.
consciousness, or like, the Dalai Lama, like these
Yep.
beings that are connected to this higher level of being, we're glimpsing that. like touching that, brushing with that transcendent, and then coming back down. And so it's sort of like, I think of energy healing as a way of catalyzing these very transformative experiences, but without any drugs, without any, like,
Mhm.
it's like,
Yeah.
okay, if plant medicine's not for you, you can get all of that amazing awakening and shifts of perspective and opening your mind and seeing the world differently and learning so much about yourself through this, which is a very gentle,
Mhm.
super safe, like 100% no side effects
Mhm.
form of healing, which is really beautiful and really cool.
Mhm. And I remember like my first sessions thinking back, I didn't understand what was happening, but I could feel the shifts in me after. And I think the same way you can go to a massage and you're like, "Oh yeah, I feel so much better after." I had those same types of feelings and no one had to touch me for me to receive any of that. It was like you said, it's not even through actual physical touch that you can have this. I've had some of my most powerful Reiki sessions through Zoom. And so it's just understanding that. And like, I would just say on the plant medicine piece too, like Reiki, I don't know if I ever would have done plant medicine or worked with it had I not started with Reiki and started with breath work and done all these other things that were bringing me to that state. But plant medicine took me to another level, which I find now because I've felt what that level feels like when I do breath work, when I do Reiki, I'm brought there immediately. I don't need,
Yeah.
honestly, I don't even feel a pull to do psilocybin or like you to use it for a while. Like I'm like, I don't know if I need to. I feel like when I do breath work now or go for and do Reiki, and I actually got my level 1 just out of curiosity for
Oh,
it. And
amazing.
my kids will ask me for it. Like I've done it
Yeah.
on them a couple times and they don't know what it is. And they'll be like, "Mom, I need you to do Reiki." And so it's like
Yeah.
they at these little ages understand somehow it makes them feel different without needing to know any science, any facts, anything. They're
Yep.
just like, "Hey mom, do this." Because they felt what it felt like the first few times I did it. Um, and so it really is so valuable. I love it so much. Is there anything else you want to share about you? Like in regards to just your journey and like, I don't know, like where you're at now in your life when you reflect back for somebody who could be in that corporate career who knows it's not aligned. Like they know it isn't, but it feels so scary because like you said, you were making great money. You had a prestigious career. It's the thing that I remember when I was freshly out of college and what I was doing, I would see the people who did work in pharmaceuticals and like sold because I used to work at a doctor's office too because I thought that's what I wanted to do. And some of the girls that would come in and I was like, they're so pretty and they're so elegant and they're making so much money. Like it was so like, ooh, like, like it looked like a really great job. And then when you started finding that it wasn't aligned, like, was that super challenging for you to acknowledge? And then what did it feel like making the jump to start your own
Yeah.
business? Because obviously did you come from any background of entrepreneurship at all?
No, but I always felt drawn to entrepreneurship. It also
Mhm.
shows you how these things, like your path can just wind so much. I think there were
Yeah.
times in my life earlier that I was like, "Oh, I should be an entrepreneur," but what would my idea be? I don't
Yeah.
know. So you can't really
Yeah.
just, I'm not gonna force it.
What am I gonna invent?
Yeah,
Right? Like, I
what's
used to
my
do that
business
too.
gonna be? Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, it makes sense now. Like my father started his own small businesses growing up. He ran newspapers in New Hampshire that he's founded, and so I don't know. It was something I saw.
Mhm.
I'm now married to an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
so I guess it was always meant to be. But
Mhm.
it felt too, yeah. I mean, at the beginning, it would have felt like, oh, well, that would be so cool if I could do that. Like that would be
Mhm.
so cool if I could be an entrepreneur, but I don't have a good enough idea, or I don't know if I could ever do that. Um, it's definitely hard to walk away from what you know. And
Mhm.
especially when you're making a lot of money, especially when you feel like, oh, I climbed this ladder all the way to the top. And now, oh my gosh, if I'm going to jump from the
I
ladder,
let it
like,
go. Mhm.
yeah, okay, and then I lose that rank that I just got, right? And okay, I'm jumping to something so totally different. Like, it's like starting over.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of fears that come up. I guess I'll share two things. One is, when I began on this spiritual journey and working with energy, I actually first started using it within the jobs I was in. And I started following, like finding more alignment, even just
Mhm.
in little ways. Again, talk about that micro adjustment. So it doesn't always have to be like,
Right.
okay, quit your job,
Right.
go. I'm working with a client right now who is actually a sales executive. And she wants to make a bigger jump, but she's going through, she's going back to school to get an MBA. Like she's doing like big things. And, at the beginning of working together, she's like, okay, I want to manifest a new job. It's funny, sometimes we come in with these ideas of what we think we want or what we think we need. And this is why I love this is why I love the transformational work that I get to do. It's like, I'm not just your career coach. We're just looking at you as a whole being. We're looking at you as like, what for your overall life, your work, your health, like
Yes.
we can't put boundaries on this.
Yeah.
So for her, she came in like, okay, I want to manifest this new job. And then we stepped back and it got more clear. And it was like, oh, wait, no, she's going to school. She's doing like, she's making next level moves and she will manifest that new job. But we even in the meantime are allowing her to get like, she's using her intuition more in sales and like tapping in to be like, okay, who do I go meet today? And like, what do I got to do today? And using her own strengths and superpowers and like, her truth, like showing up in her truth in her current job and the ripple effects that happen. For me, I signed my biggest deals ever. I was signing $10 million deals when I left my corporate job. And I think if anything, it just showed me like, okay, the more that I lean into my truth and my magic, the more powerful I am. If I can do this here, I can do this anywhere. Like, and then it was obviously an adjustment. My shift was timed with having my babies. So I left to go on maternity leave. And as I did, I was like, I have a feeling I'm not coming back. And
same thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, and it's a beautiful part about motherhood that like it allows this deep initiation of deciding who you want to be in this chapter. And it's going to be different whether you want it to be or not. So it is a cool opportunity to like a little bit start from scratch or just decide how you want to design your life for this new chapter. So for me, I was able to begin both of my businesses kind of like on the side as I was coming out of, the postpartum time, and they grew and they grew. And then eventually I was, willing to really invest in them. And they grew more and I began to hire teams and they grew more. And now I'm making as much as I did in the corporate job. Granted, it took a few years to scale up. And part of that was because I've been working part-time all along the way and still am. And that's like, this is also where we can just get really clear on what are your real goals? How do you define success? What do you actually value? And we need to, yes, there can be a dollar value and a, take home compensation number. Sure. Because we can have it all. And yes, you could be rich. And if you also want to be fulfilled and you also want to enjoy your life and you also want to have a family, like let's also look at all of that as a package. And now I would say my total compensation package is twice what it was before or more, because thinking about the amount of time I'm investing, the amount of time I get back, the amount of fulfillment I have, the true legacy I'm creating with a purpose. So anyway, long-winded answer, but
no, I love it because I think it helps people see. And again, that we both had babies and it was a transition time. And it gave me kind of the slowdown in order to be like, okay, you don't want to go back. So this is your time now in your window to get your things going, to be able to build your business and start doing the things that are in more of an alignment, and just trusting that your first step into your first entrepreneurial journey, your first step out of the thing that's not super aligned for you, it's going to take time. Like I say the same thing all the time. Unless you have a thriving business, like I don't usually suggest just quit your job. Like that's not the best step, because you need, like you said, with Reiki, like your sacral and your security and all of those things do matter for you to be able to make the best decisions from a calm state rather than a survival state. And so sometimes, like you said, practice everything you're learning, implement it into where you are, until you're ready to make that move. And that's what I did. I went from full-time down to part-time, started building my business. Then I had babies and it was like, okay, this is the perfect transition to let the part-time go and have full faith that I can go all in on my business and I'll be able to build it up, eventually to a place where I don't need to go back. And I've never gone back, because it was like you said, you get to this place where you eventually you can replace your income, of course, when you start building a business. And then it was just like the time part. Like I look back, I'm like, how I couldn't ever imagine working a 9 to 5.
I know.
And
I said that. I was like, I'm not gonna fly across the country and leave my babies all
yeah,
week. Like I could never,
and
it's
you're
just
in the
not, and
States.
I didn't even like it. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
why would I leave them to be
yeah,
gone all week to do a job that I don't even really care about?
right.
It's just, you couldn't pay me enough. You couldn't pay
Yeah,
me enough. And they tried to. They were like, "Oh, what can we do to make you stay? Like, how
yeah,
much do you want? Whatever." I'm like, "You literally can't pay me enough.
can't.
I'm just done."
Yeah,
And
because you do babies, and it's like I feel like sometimes that's what is a major shift for some people because now there's something finally outside of you that
yeah,
you're like, "Oh, I care way more about this thing that I can finally say no to those things." And even though it's what you wanted inside, sometimes now having them is like the perfect thing to be like, "Yeah, no, I'm actually good. Like I'm done.
yeah,
I'm done, done."
it's a readjustment of our values, in starting a family, and you really do just have
Mhm,
to get clear on where all the priorities fall, and it changes them.
mhm.
And it's true for men too.
Yeah,
Just I work with a lot of male executives that have families, and they want to be,
have
and they
faith
are,
in
they're
you.
dads, like they want to be present with their kids.
Yeah,
They don't want to be working 24 hours a day. And like, we
mhm.
can work on also with them balance, and like, okay, what legacy do they want to leave of
Yeah,
the man that they were, right? And that's the
mhm.
leader in the company and their team, and that's to their children and their
Yeah,
family. I mean, that's a pretty freaking big part of a legacy.
mhm.
So this is really important for all of us to be thinking about at any point, but certainly at those transitional phases and new initiation spots, you have a lot of power to really make big changes,
I have
shifts.
so many butterflies that keep flying by. So cute.
Oh,
All
wait,
the
and the butterfly is the symbol of transformation,
Yeah,
100%.
and, like, the
Yeah.
butterfly has been my sign from, like, the deep transformation work. It was, like, my
Mhm.
guiding symbol the whole time. That it was like, "No, you're good."
Wow.
Every time I'd have to make it, and I'm like, "Ah," and it would be a butterfly. I'm like, "Okay, rest assured, like, things are moving. It's in the right direction. It's in the right direction." Um,
Oh, I love that.
thank you so much for being here. How old are your kids?
2 and 4.
Oh, they're babies still.
Yeah, they're little. Yeah.
Oh,
I know, I've been building these businesses while, like,
yeah,
having babies, and I always joke I have, like, 4 kids
yeah,
because it's, like, my 2 businesses and my 2 babies, and then my
yeah,
husband runs 2 different businesses, and his are, like, even next level to mine, like,
mhm,
8-figure businesses and
yeah,
with 100 people teams, and
yeah.
so we're just like, life is full, but life is thriving,
I
and
built my business with 2 little babies too, like, literally nursing both of them. They were
yeah.
11 months apart, and so it's like I always say, I'm like, if you really wanna do something, your babies are never gonna hold you back. It might look different than what it would have looked like working with no kids, but you still can manage, and I feel like it gave me I don't know, I got really good at managing my time, like pockets of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and just juggling a bunch of different stuff. So I love that you're building your business alongside your babies. And it shows other women that it's so possible for them too, that life doesn't need to look perfect. The kids don't need to be graduated. Like you really can transition into the thing you want, build the business you want with littles at home. And that's
Yeah.
part of the beauty, I think, like you were mentioning earlier, of transitioning how we are. We're kind of transitioning out of that masculine cycle into more of a feminine, that this is the new way of building. Like we don't need to be working 8 to 10 hours a day. You can work for
Mhm.
the 2 or the 3 and be able to build businesses and have the flexibility to do that around your kids and actually
Yeah.
create the balance that you want.
Yeah, and think of the example that it sets for them.
Yeah.
I kept thinking that for my daughters. I was like, I just wanna follow my heart and
Mhm.
what I know I need to do for the world. Like, I have a strong sense of purpose. I'm like, if everybody could be experiencing Reiki and
Mhm.
energy healing, like, we could truly heal our world. I
No,
believe that.
literally.
I believe that so deeply. So this was, like, more than just a job for me. This is a
Yeah.
mission. This is a purpose. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I want my daughters to see that, like,
Mhm.
yes, we care about our family and we, of course, take care of them. And like, we're allowed to be something in the world and we're allowed to make an impact. And like, it's your duty to make an impact and to find something you care about and that you
Mhm.
feel called to do. And they do have a lot of cool data too about like kids that see their moms
Mhm.
working, are much more likely to feel like they can go after whatever job they want. And so, not to say that you have to be a working mom. Like, if you feel called to be at home, certainly just follow your heart and follow your
Yeah.
intuition. But, we're setting an example either way for them. So,
Well, and you're
yes.
showing them that you're an individual, you're you and your
Yeah.
mom,
Yeah.
right? Where I think for a lot of the generations before us, I know for me, it was like moms were just moms. We didn't know that they had anything else outside of being a mom.
Yeah.
And so, of course, you also see the flip side of that, where when your entire identity is a mom, then when your babies are no longer with you, who are you? And
Yeah.
so many women end up in their 40s and 50s completely lost because they're like, oh shit, like I gave up every part of my identity to be a mom, and nothing necessarily wrong with that. But I think, again, we learn from previous, generations, and we're like, actually, you can keep your identity and be who you are and be firm in that and be a mom. And I think it also shows your kids that there's nothing wrong with choosing you and putting time into you and
Yeah.
prioritizing you and like your mission. And I think they learn exactly. Just like with their dads, when they see their dads go on mission, it doesn't make their dads bad. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, dad's on mission. He's doing this. Like they see what he's doing in the world. And so it's the same thing as a mom, which I love.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I was going to say something else I wanted you to talk about just as you were speaking, but now I can't remember. So thank you
No,
for being here. Where can
yeah.
people find you? How do people connect with you? Of course, I'll link things in the show notes for people. But
Yeah.
yeah, just how can people find you?
Let's see. You can follow me on Instagram at forward W Grace, forward with Grace. That's me, forward W Grace. You can also follow my retreat center at Topanga Canyon Oasis, or come out and visit us, have a stay in Topanga, California. And I want to link a freebie for everybody. What should we
Okay.
do? We have a mindset exercise about empowerment mindset. Maybe that feels good for what we're doing. So
Mhm.
we'll put the link for that, and you can just download. It's a guided audio and then a worksheet that you fill out. But it's for anytime you're feeling stuck, helping you to reframe your mindset and
Mm,
shift into a state of empowerment. And we use a little bit of Reiki in it. So
love it.
that'll be a nice little tool for people to get a tiny taste and try this out for
Amazing.
themselves. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad that we did this. Thank you so much for being here and just sharing everything. I feel like we could have 9 million conversations from what
I
we just had,
know.
right? And
Yeah,
I want to
totally.
check out your retreat center. I want to see where it is and what you do because they're my favorite. Going to different women's retreats are the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's here in Topanga. It's beautiful. We're at the edge of the Topanga State Park, and we have two small homes. So we have some smaller, like multi-day retreats, and then we host a lot of shorter retreats for like the LA area. And yeah, women's retreats, spiritual retreats. We do
Mhm.
like private events and buyouts. So we've had people do like a special birthday or something, and myself and my team offer concierge energy healing and workshops and things that you can kind of customize and create your own retreat
I
experience as
love
well.
it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I'll make sure to link everything. And yeah, just thank you again for being here and sharing your time with us.
Yeah. Thank you. It was so nice to speak with
Amazing.
you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.